Welcome back to Lumify. In this video, we're going to talk about planning forms. You can use planning forms to help you plan your event in a collaborative way with your clients so that your clients feel like they're involved with the event planning process. To get started creating a planning form, you want to navigate over to Planning Forms and click the blue button that says Create Planning Form. When you hit that button, you'll be presented with some options here. And what you see are what we call boilerplate templates that you can use to quickly get started with planning forms. There's a planning form for general events where you can collect information about the client, the type of event, and any other important information. There's a planning form template for weddings. There's a planning form template for LGBT weddings. There's a planning form template for corporate events. And then there's also an evaluation form, which has the rating stars that you can send to your clients after an event to get a review from them. And then finally, you'll see here that there's an import option where you can import planning forms from other Lumify instances, from friends, from anywhere else. You can go ahead and import planning forms. And we'll talk about that towards the end of this video. To get started, though, we're just going to hit the General Planning Form button. And what that does is it pre-populates this planning form with basic information about an event. So in this boilerplate, you're going to be able to collect some client details, information about the event. You can upsell add-ons if you really wanted to. You can add your add-ons in here. And you can also have a note section and maybe how did the client hear about you, the referral source. All right, so let's dig into this a little bit. When you click on a field, each of these items are called fields. When you click on a field, you'll see some options. The field that we happen to click on is a section field, which is this title right here where it says Client Details. If we click that, we'll see that we can rename the section or the field to anything that we want. So we can say client information if we wanted to. We can go into your formatting. For sections, you have the ability to change the size of the heading. So you can make it any level that you want. And then you can also hide the heading if you really wanted to. Okay. And then you can also put a field ID just to keep things organized. You can call it whatever you want. This is not shown to your clients. And then you also have this option for hidden or shown. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So let's take a look at another type of field. This is a text field. This text field is the client's name. So we can change this to, if we really wanted to, we can make a client's name. The default value is the value that's shown by default to the client. So we can make it say, if we know the client's name, we can make it say, whatever. And for some of the fields, you might actually have to hit save and publish and then refresh before it'll show. The default is one of those examples. And then you can also do placeholders. So let's say there is no default value, but maybe you want to say, for example, enter your name. And this is sort of helpful text that can help the client enter the correct information that you're looking for. Cool, so let's check out a different type of field. Down here we have a drop-down, a select field, where you can have any number of drop-down items in a field. And what that looks like is like this. And in this case, we actually have this as a multi-select, so the client can select multiple options in this drop-down. And the way that you define the options is you create a list where each line represents an option. So in this case, we have an option for formal traditional, we have an option for romantic, we have an option for alternative, vintage, etc. And then you can allow it to be a multi-select or a single select. So if we turn that off there and we hit save, this should be sorry, that's the wrong field. It should be a single select now. So the client can only choose one option. So that's the basics of fields. But before we move on here, I just want to show what all the options are for different fields. There's a text field, there's a number field, there's a date field. So the date field actually shows the client a handy selector for a date. There's also a email address field, which requires a valid email address. We looked at the drop-down field. Text box field is simple text box. The rating field, let's actually take a quick look at an example of that. So we'll create an evaluation form, and this is the rating field. This is what the rating field looks like. And you can actually put a default a value in there if you wanted to. So you can say 5 stars by default. And so if we refresh that, we'll see that that first option has 5 stars by default. Going back to where we were, we'll see that there's also a note field, which allows the client to enter any number of lines of text. And then there's also the section field. And again, the sections are these headers that you see here. Now you can always drag and drop items. So for example, here we just moved event theme above client information. We can move it back just by dragging it. And you'll see it update here on the left. And you'll also notice that when you're dragging sections around, it'll drag all the children of that section with it. So you only have to drag one thing if you're using sections, which makes it easier. And that's actually the recommendation, is to separate your planning forms out into sections. And the reason why we recommend sections is when you want to do conditional logic. And so conditional logic can be really helpful in different cases. One of those cases might be if you are a wedding DJ and you typically DJ wedding receptions, but you might also have a situation where you're doing sound for the client. And in those situations, you might want to gather some more information in your planning form about ceremony. But then there might be another handful of clients that you have where you're not DJing their ceremony because it's in a church, and there's going to be an organist, and there's not going to be any music played during the ceremony. So in that case, you might not want to show those ceremony related questions. And that's the perfect use case for conditional logic. In our boilerplate planning form, called wedding planning form, there's a question here under the more in detail section that asks, are we providing sound for a wedding ceremony? If the answer to that is yes, ceremony options section shows up. If the answer to that is no, that section is hidden. And by default, that section is hidden because the entire section is always hidden unless the doing ceremony question equals yes. So let's take a look at that. Let's refresh here. And even if there's no option filled in for are we providing sound for your wedding ceremony, that ceremony options section is hidden. And that's represented here by this icon with the line through it. So how do you do conditional logic? Well, you want to determine first if you want to show the question by default and then hide it, or if you want to hide the question and then show it. And that's called show logic or hide logic. And to flip between show logic or hide logic, you can either check or uncheck this checkbox here for hidden. And then if you want to show the question using logic, you can type in the question ID, an operator, a conditional operator. In this case, we're using equals. And then in quotes, yes. So if doing ceremony equals yes, then the question will be shown. And we'll see that again. Question is shown. Okay. And the question ID is defined in the advanced tab right here. Field ID, doing ceremony equals yes, then the question will be shown. And you can also do this in other places. For example, in the evaluation form that we just looked at, you might want to have a question that is populated when you're not getting a full 5 stars in your review. So for example, the client gives you less than 5 stars on even just one of the questions up here, then what can we do better next time will show up. And that's hidden if you get a full 5 stars across the board. And so the way that one works is, what can we do better next time? We'll again see that this one has some sort of logic on it. And if we go to advanced, we'll see that it's by default hidden, and it's shown if the overall rating is less than 5, the music rating is less than 5, if the likelihood that the client will refer you to someone else is less than 5. If any of those are true, because there's an or condition between each of these pieces of logic, any of those are true, then you'll get the what can we do better next time. The last thing I wanted to talk about here is importing planning forms. Planning forms can be shared between Lumify accounts. So what you can do is go up to More Actions, Export as JSON, and it'll save the planning form as a JSON file that can be re-imported back into Lumify on any account. So a good example of that would be if you create a new planning form, you go down to Import option, it'll ask you for a file, and you can import any planning forms. And there you go. So this planning form is from one of our other users, and he spent significant amount of time building this out. But with just the click of a button, you're able to import that into your Lumify account. All right, finally, I want to show one last thing before we close out this video. There's a handy feature in planning forms that allows you to save information that you're getting in your planning form back to the event that the planning form is associated with. So let's take a quick look at that. So we can take, let's pick the theme. So we're going to click the theme, and under the advanced section, there's this option for save response to event meta. And if we check that off, what will happen is when this planning form is completed, the theme question will be written back to the event under the meta section. Let's take a quick look at that. Let's go to an event, and let's assign the general planning form to this wedding. There you go. The planning form is assigned, and you'll see that it pulled in the default, I guess. I guess that is the default that we have there. And we'll see if we answer this. Just throw a couple options in there, and we're going to have to populate this because this field requires a valid email address. We'll put in a phone number. And what we'll see now is the event theme is going to be written back to the event. Hit save. And there you go. So the selected theme is down here. And we can do the same thing for other fields just by going back to the planning form. And we can, for example, let's write the email back. Let's say save the email back to the event. So if we edit this planning form, test 1, 2, 3, hit save, what we'll see down in custom meta fields is the client email has been populated down here. And this is really powerful because it allows you to use these custom fields in documents, in other planning forms, in automations, and all over Lumify. You can use these custom meta fields to differentiate, to organize, to customize emails that you send out to your clients. So that's all I have today for planning forms. We'll see you in the next one.